What's going on, everyone? So at the end of season 3, we saw Julie return and try to save her father, right? She wanted to rewrite the story and ended up failing. She was unable to rewrite the story and ended up killing, or Jim still ended up dying. And we're still waiting to see like what happens with Julie. What's her fate? Does the man in yellow try to kill her and she ends up getting away? Or does the man in yellow let her survive? Does she end up getting like pulled back into her time, right? Is she somebody from the future? If so, how much from the future, right? Like there's so many questions that need to be answered, right? Why does she have the big scratch on her face, right? She obviously got stuck or was traveling in and out of different times and different stories and stuff like that. She obviously was sticking her nose in various places, right? And so what I really hope to see in the next season is obviously the conclusion of this and how this plays out, right? Like, what does the man in yellow do to Julie? Does she not? But I also want them to explore kind of the time travel element, right? Particularly like, okay, so we know she goes to the dungeon, or the ruins, which then she can enter the dungeon and then she can go to these various stories, right? Well, how does she get back? Right? If she can just jump into a story, how does she get back? Does she just go back to the dungeon and then she could just go? Is there a way to go back? Or does she, if she fails, right? So, like, for example, she went there to go save Jim, her dad. Jim died. She failed to save Jim. So, in doing so, by failing to save Jim, does she just end up getting sucked back into her time and, you know what I mean? Like, it automatic, like she failed her mission, so boom, she goes back. And it's kind of like, have you ever seen that movie? What is it with Tom Cruise? I think it's like the day after tomorrow, or or something like that, right? Like where it's basically a Groundhog Day type thing, and he has to keep going back in time. To every time he dies, he goes back in time, or maybe it's something like that where she dies and she ends up going there. Maybe that's why the man in yellow doesn't kill her, because he knows, like, if I kill her, she's just gonna go right back. You know? Does she end up getting stuck? Maybe that's what ended up happening. And why she has a scratch on her face and why her hair is shorter and everything's different. Maybe she just got stuck, right? It's very possible that she was in a different place and ended up getting stuck and then somehow ended up getting out. Maybe that timeline has to kind of play itself out, or that story has to play itself out, right? So, for example, like, you know, like where Tabitha and Victor went through the caves. Maybe she has to kind of let them finish and go through the caves, and that entire just sequence that she's witnessing has to kind of finish and play itself out, and then she can walk out. Maybe a door opens or something, right? It's going to be interesting, but that's something that I want to see them explore. Another big thing that I really want to see them explore is the general premise of like where she went, where she's going, right? There was talks about maybe potentially seeing like an episode, or there was rumors that the entire season. I still pray that it's not the entire season. I don't mind an episode or two where we're touching in time traveling, or I've even thrown out the possibility of like, what if like we get a couple episodes, or even like an overarching story, right? Where you have like the main story, you have all the characters, stuff like that, but like Julie's story is her traveling through all these different timelines, and we're getting like scenes and sequences throughout each episode of her from like her perspective, her point of view. So we're watching, you know, say Jade and Tabitha back when they were together, call it John and Mary, and we're witnessing those past events almost like through the eyes of Julie. Like, I think that could be a creative way to kind of go about, you know, an episode or several episodes, or, you know, kind of, again, have this kind of backstory, the overarching backstory where she's just kind of gathering information. Like, I see her power as being incredibly useful, but not in the sense of actually changing history. I hope that she can't, because if that's the case, just go back in time, save the children, and then nothing else happens. Like, I just feel like that's such a cop-out, so to speak. Like, I feel like that's such an easy way out. I'd rather it to where, like we saw, she can't change the story. The story happens, Too bad. There's no way to change the story. And instead of her trying to change the story, she just comes to the realization that, like, wait, I can just gather this information that can be helpful to stop and prevent this going forward, right? Like, there are these patterns, there are these instances. I don't want my mother to die like my father died, right? How did How did Miranda fail? Where did she go wrong? How did the person before Miranda fail? How did so on and so forth? I really want to see them explore all of those elements, but I also want to see them explore that time in which Julie was gone, from the time we saw her in the diner to the time we saw her with her dad, Jim. I really hope that they don't just brush over that, which I really feel like they're probably going to, right? I really feel like that's, like, we're probably not going to get that, however, like, hours or whatever, that would probably days for her, because she clearly was somewhere. She's clearly different. Is she somebody from the future, right? Like, I've had people throw out the possibility of, like, oh, Jim's not really dead. That's just a different timeline. That's a moment in the future, which very well could be a possibility. But again, how did she get attacked by, like, the monster? Was it the man in yellow that attacked her? Right? That's a possibility. What if it was the man in yellow that scratched her face and, she was trying to stop the man in yellow from going after her dad, right? There's a lot of thought that, hey, the man in yellow lives in the dungeon, right? Because Martin, on several occasions, kept talking about how, he's coming. I think then the second time Julie said they're coming. Right? So a lot of people, myself included, kind of think like, hey, the man in yellow probably lives in the dungeon, which that in and of itself begs a lot of, like, is the man in yellow a story walker? Can he go in and out of time as well? Maybe that's why he doesn't kill Julie, because he knows kind of the rules, right? Like, is she able to prevent him, right? Like, it would make sense that, like, maybe she didn't get stuck anywhere. It could be simple, and you could keep it simple. It could be something where she went into the dungeon, the man in yellow resides there, the man in yellow showed up, and she was trying to save her father, realized, like, I got to try to stop the man in yellow. She wasn't able to stop the man in yellow. The man in yellow didn't want to kill her because he, whatever time or whatever excuse they come up with. And so she tries to go run to save her dad, but the man in yellow's faster. And you can't stop the timeline. You can't stop the inevitable. Or she jumps into that timeline and the man in yellow's there, right? Or it could be, a different time. I don't care what kind of reasoning they want. The easiest explanation and the quickest kind of cleanup would probably be the route of, like, here's Julie. She goes and explores time, pops in at that timeline, but the man in yellow's there getting ready to kill her dad. She already saw that time, so now she's trying to prevent the man in yellow from doing it. She gets cut up, runs to try to save her dad, and then the man in yellow pops up and kills her dad, right? Like, I think that's probably cleaner than, like, she was in all these different timelines and got stuck in this one and then went back to this one. Like, I just feel like that's a lot that they'd have to unravel and explain. I just hope that, my point is, I just really hope that they don't kind of brush over everything. I really hope that they don't try to, like, skip past 90% of the things that need to be explained and figured out. You know what I mean? Like, that's my concern. Like, my concern is that we're going to get something where, like, the man in yellow's there, she's there, the man in yellow says something to her and then disappears, and then that's the end of it. Like, that's the gist of it. Just really, I want there to be kind of details and information. Like, one of the problems that we've seen with the show, which, again, I love the show, but there's no show is so perfect it's above criticism, right? Like, and one of the things that we've gotten about the show is a lot of things happen that, like, don't really go anywhere, or you don't really get conclusion to, or the details of. And I just feel like this is, like, a big point. Like, she obviously either went somewhere or figured something out, or is actively trying to figure something out. And I don't want to see something to where, oh, here you go. Yeah, she came back. She went there. She failed. Okay, that's it. Like, I don't want it to be, like, kind of rushed through, right? This is a very important element that they established into the story, right? I mean, you're talking about her ability to go to different timelines and different stories and stuff. It's kind of important, right? That's kind of significant. And I don't want it to be something where now all of a sudden it's just not significant anymore. So I do have my concerns about that, but hopefully we do get some conclusions, some information, some details in that regard. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Is this something you want to see? Do you not care either way about it? You're thinking like, it's just something not significant enough to really matter. You're okay with it either way. Do you think, no, you're right. Like, it is something that really does need to have a purpose. This really is something that needs to kind of play itself out, and that they need to kind of figure out and not kind of rush through or glance over. Anyway, as always, again, this is a discussion, so I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. It helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribed channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.